What's up? This is 2B, and I'm recording a video because earlier today I had a bunch of people out, and we might have some of that over the next few weeks of quarantines and absences, and who knows, maybe even a little bit of e-learning. So instead of having the absent people catch up later, I thought I would keep them on the hook and on the ball with videos, kind of like I did last year. Today, we're reading a story, and I'm going to read a little bit out loud, introduce some of the basics, and then ask you to read the rest on your own. I also have a few new people who just transferred into the class, so we might need to do a little recap of the previous stuff. So let's get going. This story is called 6 Days in Glorious Vienna by Yoko Ogawa, and you can see it's translated, written in Japanese originally, and the translation is pretty good. I like a couple different things from this author and translator pair. By the way, I took my mask off, but I'm right next to a window, and it's going to be less than 15 minutes, and I'm not next to any other people, so as soon as this cuts off, I'm going to put it back on again. 14 tourists had signed up for 6 days in Glorious Vienna, open plan. And since Kotoko and I were the only singles in the group, it was inevitable that we ended up rooming together at the hotel. Kotoko turned out to be a plump woman in her 60s who had been widowed some years earlier. On our first night in Vienna, she kneeled politely on the bed and bowed. "I'm afraid I snore," she said. "I hope it won't bother you." And with that, she climbed under the covers. So we get our intro. Our narrator is a Japanese person. We assume a woman because they were paired up with another woman, and we'll see later we get more details. But you can always make assumptions at the beginning and just change them later if they turn out to be wrong. We get an older woman who is a stranger to our character, but our character is going alone and, probably would have had to pay extra for a single room. They're going to Vienna, which is in Austria, and we don't know the time period yet. The story came out in 2015, at least the English version, and you can usually assume that it's around present day, but we'll see more details later. I thought women her age were chatty, but not Kotoko. When the rest of us had gathered at the airport or in the lobby of the hotel, talking excitedly about the trip, she had stood a bit apart, looking uncomfortable. She clutched the strap of a brown vinyl shoulder bag that was stuffed to the gills and eyed us uneasily, as though she'd wandered into our midst by mistake. Other than the fact that it was the first trip abroad for both of us, we seemed to have nothing in common. So it's the first trip abroad, which means we can start to make a few assumptions. The narrator will get more soon about her age and so on, but we assume they're probably not rich, because rich people might have traveled more. Maybe going with a group would be sort of easier and less stressful than going on your own. So you have a tour guide and you have somebody arrange all the stuff. Maybe as a first trip, this is a pretty big one, right? A new continent, a new language, all kinds of stuff, even though it's only 6 days. Still, it didn't matter much. Since the tour was self-guided and we would be on our own for the next 6 days, there was no need for us to get better acquainted, even if we were to be roommates. I hadn't come to Vienna to hear her go on about her grandchildren or badmouth her daughter-in-law, nor did I want her prying into my private life. I'd been saving everything I'd earned at my tutoring job to celebrate my 20th birthday with this trip. Now we know more. We got 20th birthday, saving everything. All of her assumptions about the other character, like, I didn't come to hear an old lady talk about her grandchildren. We already see that that's wrong, that the old lady is not talking about her grandchildren, but this is meant to show us the narrator's point of view. And so whenever you hear one character describe another one, yeah, we're learning about the person being described, but even more than that, we're learning about the person doing the observing, doing the judging, and doing the assuming. As she knelt there on the bed, Kotoko had looked a bit like a decorative object. Her face was round, with folds of fat at the chin. Her breasts hung down on her round belly. Generous layers of fat covered every part of her: eyelids, ears, shoulders, back, knees, fingers, each tracing its own distinctive curve. And there, next to the bed, lay the swollen bag as if mimicking the shape of her body. It was true that she snored, but so quietly that I was able to fall asleep almost immediately. I was going to stop and describe stuff again, but let's keep going. Kotoko knelt on the bed again the next morning as I was getting ready to go out. She seemed to be hesitating about something, and she would take a map from her bag, sigh a bit, and then put on the cardigan she'd just taken off. "Excuse me," she murmured without looking up. "Would you mind writing the name of the hotel?" she said, holding out the palm of her hand. "I'm afraid of getting lost and not being able to find my way back. I know it sounds silly, but I can't read foreign words." The springs of the mattress groaned as the bow made her round body even rounder. "It's written right here," I said, but she stopped me as I reached for the phone pad and held her hand up again. "But I might lose the paper. If you write it here, I'm sure to have it." Okay, so here's the thing. These guys are Japanese, so this is one step further of difficulty. Like if I go to Austria, I don't read German, but I read the alphabet. It's the same letters. So I can guess about pronunciation, and I can guess about what things might mean. But if you're coming from Japan to Austria, you might not know, like, oh, that's a K or that's a J or something. This old lady apparently is not ready for that. So she says, "Hey, can you write this on my hand so that if I get lost, I can just hold it up and be like, hopefully some nice person will help me, because I'm not going to be lucky enough to just run into a Japanese speaker." By the way, this is also a clue about the time. If this happened now, she'd just have a cell phone with Google Translate, but we can assume it's maybe before then. I don't know. Her hand, too, was layered with fat, and the feeling as the tip of the pin buried itself in her palm was somehow satisfying. On it, I wrote König von Ungarn with a permanent marker. I had to admit that I wasn't sure exactly how to pronounce the complicated foreign name myself. And I don't know if I'm saying that right either, but the point is I can at least guess because I know a language that uses the same letters. And she writes it on the old lady's hand. Okay. This is, of course, a symbol whenever characters like hold each other's hand. It's sort of like, oh, they're bonding in some way, but they're not best friends just yet. Kotoko studied her palm for a moment, tracing the pin marks with her finger. But then she began to squirm again, as though some new source of anxiety had occurred to her. She looked up and met my gaze, and then quickly looked down again. She seemed to be at considerable pains to let me know that she had something else to ask, but was finding it difficult to do so. And here we have the narrator jump in and say, "Where are you going today?" It was a simple question, and I asked it without thinking, without any real interest in the answer. But it proved to be the start of all my troubles. So this old lady has some plan, right? She's got like this big bag full of stuff, and she keeps getting on a map and like, "Hey, can you help me?" The old lady hasn't said the plan. She's not like, "Hey, can you join me on a quest to, steal this painting or whatever?" But we know she has a plan, and we know that the narrator doesn't really care. This is a stranger. We don't have any connection, but the narrator says, "Where are you going?" And now we're going to hear about it and get into the premise of the story. And we see a little double line here to show that it's a cut. It's like not flowing smoothly the way the previous ones were, but it's like skipping ahead in time, implying that, okay, she had told us all this stuff to the narrator, and now we're hearing a summary of it. Kotoko had come to Vienna with a single purpose, to visit an old lover who was hovering near death in the hospital wing of a nursing home in the suburbs. The announcement startled me, since I had never imagined she would be uttering a phrase like old lover. Boom, now we have a thing. Now we have like a hook of what's going on and what to care about. When we had just had two characters in a hotel room, that's not really a story yet because they're just hanging around. They don't have like a specific goal. If this was a video game, they haven't had like the objective pop up on the screen yet. But now they do. Now it's like, boop, objective 1, the old lady needs to find her old lover. To visit an old lover who is hovering near death in the hospital wing of a nursing home in the suburbs. Looks like a little typo in here. Now we have a story. Now she cares about a person, and she cares about finding him. And if she doesn't, it's going to be bad. And if she does, it's going to be interesting. And we have everything we need to get started on action, conflict, all the good stuff. I had originally intended to go with her as far as the streetcar terminal of Schottentor Station. She explained that to get to the nursing home, she would need to take the number 38 streetcar from Schottentor to a stop called Green something or other. And so we're going to see. I'm not going to read the whole thing because I don't want to make a super long video. I think if I do a 25-minute runtime, people will just not click at all. But you guys can read some on your own, and maybe in class we'll do some aloud. But now we've got enough to know what's going on. Now we have a story. She has a goal. They're going to work toward the goal. They might find something surprising when they get there. They might find obstacles along the way. The two characters might bicker with each other. But at least we know what kind of things might happen and what kind of things we need to care about. She's going to be stringing us along, and like the narrator's going to go, okay, I'll take you to this stop on the train, but not the little bus after that. And then she's going to go, oh, okay, I guess I'll help you on the next one. And we're going to be building up the, progression of the plot that way. But so far, the narrator really not that involved. She doesn't really care that much. And the old lady seems like the one who's really driving things. We'll see how that changes. I'm going to end this now, but your assignment is to read this. And that's it. I'm not going to post a list of questions today because a lot of people are still working on the previous one. But next time, we're going to do an assignment that asks a few questions about this story and what we can learn from it and how we can use some ideas to get us started on our own stories. So that's the plan. Thanks.